It started on a Tuesday, the kind of unremarkable afternoon that blends into the background of suburban life. I was washing my car when I noticed Bob, my neighbor 2 doors down, standing in the middle of his pristine Kentucky bluegrass with a spade shovel. He wasn't gardening. He was breaking ground right in the center of the yard, tossing dirt over his shoulder with a rhythmic, sweaty intensity that seemed out of place for 2 p.m. I walked over, wiping my hands on a rag. "Installing a pool, Bob?" I joked, though the hole was already waist-deep and jagged. Bob stopped. He leaned on the shovel handle, breathing hard. He looked at me, his eyes wide and unblinking.
"Have you ever got the feeling,"
he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper,
"that something just ain't right?"
I blinked. With the HOA? Or just in general? He ignored the joke.
Well, I figure it this way. The government, scientists, hell, everyone has this predetermined notion of what lays below us. Mantle core, bedrock. We just accept it.
I frowned, looking at the pile of fresh earth. Well, there are mines, Bob. Geological surveys. Drill holes. We know what's down there. Bob shook his head.
Ain't no mines or drilling here.
A drop of sweat rolling off his nose.
I'm curious how far a man and his shovel can go.
He turned back to the dirt and slammed the spade down. Thud. I watched him for the next 3 days. He was out there at dawn, and I could hear the scraping of metal on rock until well past dusk. The hole was no longer a hole, it was a pit. He had set up a ladder to get in and out. By Friday evening, coming home from a long week at the office, I tapped my brakes as I turned onto our street. Bob wasn't alone. Mrs. Higgins from the corner house was there, wearing her gardening gloves and holding a bucket. Dave, the accountant across the street, was hauling a wheelbarrow. There were 3 others I recognized, all covered in grime, all working with a synchronized focus. I parked and walked over. "Dave?" I asked. "Mrs. Higgins? What is going on?" Dave wiped his forehead.
"Just helping out, neighbor. Curiosity mostly."
"I didn't have anything else to do,"
Mrs. Higgins added, dumping a bucket of clay onto the mounting pile that was now consuming Bob's driveway.
And Bob made a compelling point about the bedrock.
I stood there for a long moment, looking at the dark mouth of the earth in the center of the lawn. It was magnetic. It was absurd, and, terrifyingly, it looked like fun. "Do you have an extra shovel?" I asked. The operation scaled up quickly. By the second week, the hole was deep enough that we needed a pulley system. The deeper we went, the more the neighborhood bonded. We stopped talking about interest rates and lawn care. We talked about strata, soil density, and the depth. Then the digging got tough. We hit a layer of hardpan that broke 2 shovels.
"We need more power,"
Bob declared, looking up at us from the bottom of the pit, his face caked in clay.
"My brother-in-law is in earth moving."
A guy named Steve piped up from the rim.
"He's got a mini excavator. He owes me a favor."
2 days later, the excavator was in Bob's backyard. The brother-in-law, a burly guy named Gary, didn't even ask questions. He just saw the fervor in our eyes and started digging. We shored up the sides with plywood and timber. We ran extension cords for floodlights. We were 20 feet down, then 40, then 60. It happened on a Tuesday night, exactly 1 month after Bob started. Clang. The sound wasn't the dull thud of rock. It was the ringing, hollow sound of metal striking metal. Gary killed the engine. The silence that followed was deafening. We all scrambled down the ladders, crowding into the bottom of the shaft. Bob fell to his knees, frantically brushing away the loose dirt with his bare hands.
"Bring the light!"
he screamed. I angled the work light down. Beneath the clay, emerging like a buried coin, was a surface of gray, riveted steel. As we cleared more, the shape became undeniable. It was a hatch. Heavy, industrial, and fitted with a circular dogging mechanism. A wheel used to seal watertight doors. We sat there for days, just staring at it. We held meetings in Bob's living room. The theories ranged from the paranoid to the ridiculous. It's a Cold War fallout shelter. It's a missile silo the government forgot. It's a burying ground for toxic waste. Maybe it's a time capsule. Bob didn't say much. He just sat there, staring at the dirt under his fingernails, looking vindicated.
"I told you,"
he'd mutter.
"I told you we didn't know."
Finally, curiosity won out over caution. It was midnight. A select group of us, me, Bob, Gary, and Dave, stood at the bottom of the shaft. The rest of the neighborhood watched from the rim, a ring of silhouettes against the moon.
"Ready?"
Bob asked. We nodded. Bob gripped the wheel. It resisted at first, groaned in protest, and then, with a screech of rusted hinges, it turned. A hiss of air escaped, stale, dry air that smelled of ozone and dust. Bob pulled the hatch open. Below us lay a concrete shaft, illuminated by the beam of our flashlights, with a bolted metal ladder descending into the dark.
I'll go first,
Bob said. We followed him down. The descent was long, at least another 50 feet. My boots clanged on the rungs, the sound echoing endlessly. Finally, Bob's feet hit solid ground. We were in a corridor, white tile walls, fluorescent lights that flickered to life as we stepped onto the floor sensors. It looked like a hospital or a high-end laboratory. Which way? I whispered.
Forward,
Bob said. We walked for what felt like a mile. The air was cool and filtered. Finally, the corridor ended at a massive set of double doors. Bob pushed them open. We stepped through and stopped dead. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. We weren't in a room. We were outside. Or at least, it looked like outside. We stood on a sidewalk. Above us, a vast, domed ceiling was painted a perfect, cloudless blue, illuminated by massive floodlights that mimicked the sun. The air smelled of artificial floral scent.
My God.
Gary whispered. I looked down at the grass. It was plastic, perfect green synthetic blades. I looked at the houses lining the street. They were beige. 2 stories. Vinyl siding. I looked at the house directly in front of us. It had a red door. It had a Honda Civic in the driveway. It had a small, half-finished flower bed near the porch. I turned to Bob. His face had gone pale white. Bob, I stammered, pointing at the house next to the one with the red door. That's your house. He looked at the manicured lawn of the replica house. In the center of the yard, the grass was perfect. Unbroken. Undug. We walked down the silent, empty street. Every detail was correct. Mrs. Higgins' wind chimes. Dave's faded mailbox. My own car, sitting in my own driveway, waxed and shining under the fake sun. It was our neighborhood. An exact, silent, pristine copy, buried 100 feet beneath the earth. Bob walked to the center of his replica lawn. He fell to his knees on the artificial turf, looking up at the painted sky.
Something just ain't right,
He whispered. The silence was the heaviest thing I had ever felt. Up above, even at 2 a.m., there was always something. The hum of the highway, the chirp of crickets, the settling of timber. Here, under the painted dome, there was nothing. Just the low, electrical buzz of the floodlights that bathed the fake neighborhood in a wash of aggressive, shadowless noon.
This is ridiculous.
Dave whispered, terrified to raise his voice. He reached out and touched a fire hydrant. Bob stood up from the artificial grass. He looked possessed. He didn't say a word. He just marched straight toward his replica front door. "Bob, wait!" I hissed. He didn't stop. He grabbed the handle of his front door. It wasn't locked. It swung open with a smooth, well-oiled glide that his real door never had. He stepped inside. I looked at the others. Gary was gripping a heavy wrench he'd brought down, his knuckles white. "We have to stick together," Gary said. I nodded and ran toward my own house, the one with the red door. I expected it to be a movie set, cardboard cutouts, empty space, facade. I was wrong. I stepped into my foyer and the smell hit me instantly. It didn't smell like my house, which usually smelled like coffee and dog hair. It smelled like preservation, like a museum exhibit. But visually, it was perfect. The rug the Persian runner in the hall had the exact same coffee stain I'd made 3 years ago. I walked to the mantel. There was the picture of me and my wife in Hawaii. I picked it up. The frame was real wood. The glass was real glass. But when I turned it over, there was a small barcode sticker on the back that read, ASSET442B. My keys were on the side table. I reached into my pocket and touched my actual keys. I looked at the table. An identical set lay there. I walked into the kitchen. The fridge was humming. I opened it. It was fully stocked. Milk, eggs, leftovers, and Tupperware. I popped the lid of a container. It was lasagna. My lasagna. The one I had made 2 nights ago. It was fresh, steaming slightly as if just placed there.
"Hey guys, come check this out."
It was Bob's voice, echoing from next door. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream of confusion. I ran out of my replica house and across the plastic lawn to Bob's. Gary and Dave were already there, standing in Bob's living room. Bob was standing over his coffee table. He was holding a stack of mail.
Look at the freaking date.
Bob whispered, shoving a letter toward me. I took it. It was a utility bill. I looked at the postmark. October 14th. Bob, I said, my mouth dry. It's October 11th. This is 3 days from now.
Read the letter underneath.
Bob said. I picked up the next envelope. It was a letter from the city. Dear Mr. Miller, regarding the unauthorized excavation in your backyard, we regret to inform you that fines have been levied.
They knew?
Bob whispered.
They knew I was digging before I was finished digging? They printed the fine before I got the letter?
In Bob's real house, the hallway leads to a linen closet and the bathroom. In this house, the hallway door was slightly ajar, but a strange blue light was spilling out of it. We walked down the hall, shoulder to shoulder. Bob kicked the door open. It wasn't a linen closet. The back wall of the closet was missing. Instead, it opened up into a narrow, cramped observation corridor that seemed to run behind the walls of all the houses. It was lined with one-way glass. We peered through the glass. We were looking into Bob's bathroom, but not the bathroom in this fake house. On the glass, a digital display flickered. Feed live, Sector 7 surface. We were watching Bob's real bathroom, 100 feet above us. The feed was grainy, black and white, and live. We could see the empty toothbrush holder. We could see the dirty towel he'd left on the floor this morning. I ran down the service corridor, stumbling over cables. I found the viewport for my house. I looked through the glass into my living room. I saw my wife. She was sitting on the couch, up on the surface, crying. She was on the phone. I pressed my ear against the glass, but I couldn't hear her. I looked down at a console beneath the window. There was a pair of headphones. I snatched them up and jammed them over my ears. I don't know, officer, her voice came through, tinny and terrified. He never came home from work. And the neighbors, Bob, Dave, they're all gone. Their cars are here, but the people are just gone. I ripped the headphones off. We have to go back, I said. We have to tell them. Bob laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. He was standing at the end of the service corridor, pointing at a heavy steel door marked exit, stage manager only. We aren't going back up that tube, Bob said. That digging, that hole, that was just us breaking the set. If we want answers, we don't go up. He put his hand on the steel door handle. The heavy steel door didn't creak. It swung open with the silent, heavy precision of a bank vault. Bob stepped through first. I expected a command center, a throne room, or maybe a swirling vortex of energy. Instead, we stepped into a hallway that looked like the back corridor of a Costco. The floors were polished concrete. The walls were unfinished drywall, taped but not painted. Overhead, exposed ductwork rattled with the sound of massive air conditioners. Pallets of supplies were stacked against the walls. I walked up to a pallet wrapped in clear plastic. It was stacked high with boxes labeled HOA violation notices, Q4 batch. Next to it was a crate labeled Seasonal Depression, Aerosol Dispersal Units.
My God, it's a warehouse? It's just a damn warehouse.
We walked for 5 minutes, passing rooms filled with humming server racks that generated enough heat to make me sweat. Finally, the corridor opened up into a wide bay area. There, sitting at a folding table in the middle of this high-tech purgatory, was a man. He looked completely unremarkable. He was wearing a blue polo shirt with a generic swoosh logo, khaki pants, and a lanyard. He was eating a ham sandwich and watching a YouTube video on a tablet. He didn't notice us until Bob slammed his shovel onto the concrete floor. The man jumped, dropping his sandwich. He spun around in his chair, his eyes going wide. He didn't look like a god. He looked like a mid-level shift supervisor named Kevin.
Whoa, hey!
The man stammered,
You can't be back here. The tour groups aren't until...
standing up and holding his hands up. He squinted at us. He looked at Bob's dirt-caked face. He looked at Gary's wrench. Then he looked at the monitors behind him on the wall.
Wait a minute, you're asset 774.
The man said, his face dropping.
And asset 775.
He looked at me.
And asset 779.
My name is Bob.
Bob growled, stepping forward.
Yeah, Bob. That's the handle.
The man said, suddenly looking more annoyed than scared. He sighed and rubbed his temples.
Great. Just great. I leave my post for 5 minutes for lunch, and Sector 7 goes rogue. Management is going to kill me.
What is this place? I demanded, stepping up beside Bob. Why is there a copy of our neighborhood down the hall? Why is my wife crying upstairs? The man, his lanyard, actually said Kevin. Shift lead rolled his eyes. He walked over to a console and started typing furiously.
Look, guys, I don't get paid enough to explain the metaphysics. You're in the staging area. The neighborhood down the hall, it's a backup set. Just in case a tornado hits, a gas leak, or the ratings drop and we need to do a reshoot.
A reshoot?
Dave asked, his voice trembling. Kevin stopped typing and looked at us like we were toddlers, asking why the sky is blue.
The surface is the live feed,
Kevin explained, gesturing to a wall of monitors. I looked. There were thousands of screens. I saw New York. I saw Tokyo. I saw my own street.
Look, you guys are the cast. You live your lives, generate emotional data, buy products, vote for who we tell you to, and we harvest the engagement.
We aren't actors.
Gary said, gripping his wrench.
Like the Truman Show. Ever heard of it? No, actors get paid.
Kevin muttered.
Your biological simulations. Very advanced, very expensive, and currently very much in breach of contract.
Bob laughed. It was a manic, terrifying sound.
Contract? I didn't sign anything.
You were born.
Kevin snapped.
That's the signature. Look, buddy, you were supposed to have a midlife crisis next year. You were supposed to buy a red convertible and have an affair with a Pilates instructor. That was the script. Instead, you curious jerk started digging. You went off script.
Kevin reached for a red button on the console.
And it will be my ass on the line for it. I have to reset the sector. It's going to sting a little, but you'll wake up in your beds thinking this was all a gas leak dream. We'll fill the hole, wipe the memories, and...
Clang. Gary didn't hesitate. He threw the wrench. It didn't hit Kevin, but it smashed into the console, shattering the red button and sending sparks showering over the desk. Kevin shrieked and scrambled back.
Are you insane? Do you know how much that costs? Well, a lot. They're going to take this out of my paycheck.
Bob lunged across the table and grabbed Kevin by the collar of his polo shirt. Bob was strong, farmer strong, shovel-digging strong. He lifted the shift lead off his feet.
Where is the script for next week?
Bob snarled.
I can't...
Bob shook him.
Okay, it's over there on the server.
Kevin squealed,
Hard copies are in the filing cabinet.
pointing to a black tower in the corner.
Don't touch the sandwich. That's my lunch.
Bob dropped him. He marched to the filing cabinet. He ripped open the drawer marked Sector 7 Imminent Events. He pulled out a thick, bound document. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning frantically. What does it say? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. Bob froze. His face went pale beneath the dirt. He looked up at me, then at the monitors showing our peaceful, real neighborhood above.
Tuesday. Next Tuesday.
What happens Tuesday?
Scheduled narrative event.
Bob read.
Gas main rupture, total sector liquidation insurance payout trigger.
He looked at me, his eyes burning.
These bastards are going to blow it up, the whole goddamn neighborhood.
Bob said.
My wife, your wife, the kids, all of it, they're canceling the show.
Whoops. Look, I have nothing to do with that. I don't write the narrative.
The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the whir of the cooling fans. We have to go back up, Dave said, panic rising in his voice. We have to warn them.
No.
Bob said. He slammed the drawer shut. He looked at the shattered console, then at the door, leading further into the facility.
If we go back up, they'll just reset us or whatever they do.
Bob said.
Or they'll trigger the explosion early.
He picked up his shovel.
Kevin,
Bob said, turning to the trembling man on the floor.
where's the executive suite?
Kevin pointed a shaking finger toward a heavy blast door at the far end of the bay.
Floor 100. But you can't... Security is...
We aren't assets anymore.
Bob said, walking toward the blast door.
We're critics.
He looked back at us.
Who's coming with me?